You already know why we're here. You read the damn title. Fuck you, Game of the Year Awards. You gave the most hated game of the year, Game of the Year. A game that was hated by practically majority of the fans. And yet, the game that everyone loved had to win people's choice. There were way better games. Way better. Hell, one of them just came out yesterday. One that's definitely going to be in the running for next year's. That's miles better. Everyone loves it. But you gave a particular game, because it had a name, a dumbass, and bots. You took dumbass's money. You took bots' vote. We still with me? And you listened to critics who more than likely haven't got a fucking clue. Instead of the fans who play these games religiously and love them, with the exception of this one, because it is shit. Dog shit. Dog shit on the floor, under your boot, stinking up the place, and making everyone in the room with you run out the door. And as far away from you as possible, because the dog shit stinks. This game was horrible. There are videos of people literally destroying it. One guy took it right out of his PlayStation, picked up a pair of scissors, and cut the disc in half. I seen somebody put the disc back in the box and throw the box on a big fire. I didn't even play the game. It was that bad. It was getting so much hate, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And when one of my friends sent me a video of all the cutscenes, which is all I needed, I got to that scene and no further. Because I just lost all interest in the game after that. That was my favourite character from the first game. He was turned into an idiot who announced himself like an idiot. Far from the guy that was in the first game, who was constantly careful, wary of people, and would kill you in a heartbeat if you showed any sign of hostility. Even when he was outnumbered by that group that killed him. In the first game, he would have drawn his gun. They might have still lost, but he would have went down swinging. He would have made sure that they didn't get full satisfaction, because he probably would have killed at least 3 of them before they got anything on him. Oh, maybe more. But instead, he went out like a little bitch. And you rewarded this game for doing that to its main character. And because you got rid of who was supposed to be the main character, we ended up with 2. One who is acceptable, but you treat her like the villain. And the second, who nobody likes, and we are forced to care about. And you rewarded this type of thing. Let me spell it out for you. The fans, the people who actually play the game, the true critics, because they know what they're talking about, 100%, not some paid tool who more than likely gets paid off to give the game whatever review they give. With the exception of games that people don't want to succeed. More than likely not the developers, of course the developers want the game to succeed. But when the critics don't get paid off and take their fingers out of their asses, the game might get bashed completely by them. An example of this was Lego Jurassic World 5 years ago. Critics gave it mixed reviews. Some said it was good because of the way it followed the movies, which yes. Some said bad because the older movies' sound didn't quite sound as pristine as the newer ones. But in that game's defense, when you got to the 4th movie, the cast came back to record the lines personally. Whereas for the first movie, the dialogue was taken straight from the movie, because that movie was already out. The game released almost completely alongside the new movie. So adding dialogue from the new movie would just be spoilers. But they still recreated it. So that game was okay, aside from the characters who were recast and given dialogue that wasn't actually in the movies. Because there were a lot of scenes where there was no talking, and it was all about visuals, which is what makes the Jurassic Park series so good. It has beautiful visuals. And don't get me wrong, The Last of Us Part 2 is visually still good looking. Definitely on par with the original. But that's it. That's it. It fails literally everywhere else. Story is shit. Characters are shit. Gameplay is shit. But somehow, that is loved by critics. And defended by some fans, which I can't understand. Anyone who loved the first game would know that this game fucked up. Fucked up big time. It took everything you loved about the first game, stripped it for parts, melted it down, dipped it in a sewage tank, took it out, dried it off, then dipped it in fresh diarrhea, and then made it into a game. Let me give you an example of when the fans are right and control the outcome of a game's success. And it leads to massive repercussions because it was a shit game. WWE 2K20 is one of the worst wrestling games out there. It is boring. It runs on the engine from a game from 2 or 3 years prior, instead of 1 year prior. 2K19 was absolutely amazing. My career is utter shit, because it's supposed to be a my career, which means that when I play as the male superstar, I should feel like them, because it's supposed to technically be me. I would never do any of the things he did, unless I scripted it for any kind of joke. But even then, my career was scripted. And the payoff was shit. Because that's supposed to be taken seriously. I'm not. Except in this video. The Last of Us Part 2, like I said, fucked up big time. It took its best character, the main character. I'm sorry, but Ellie just is not the main character. She is a main character, but she's not the main character. I expected Ellie to get more gameplay time in the second game. And I think everyone else did too. She was pretty much guaranteed to be the main character of the second game, which she more or less ends up being. But she also ends up being the main villain. No! We do not give a fuck about Abby. We don't give a fuck about her revenge. We just don't give a fuck about her. But we do give a fuck about Ellie and Joel. And you took one of them from us. You took the guy who was possibly Troy Baker's best character, his best performance in any game, and you put it in the dirt. and decided that the only way you wanted to use him after that was flashbacks. Fuck flashbacks. Flashbacks can work when done right, but when you're putting them in left, right, and center, and you have a more confusing timeline than the X-Men franchise, you're shit. It's simple. You're shit. I hate this game. My friends hate this game. A lot of people on Twitter hate this game. A lot of people on Instagram hate this game. A lot of people on YouTube hate this game. A lot of people on Facebook hate this game. People hate this game. A lot of them. And you handed it the Game of the Year award. You didn't once consider how the fans felt. Ghost of Tsushima was amazing. I loved it. My friends loved it. A lot of people loved it. It was a good game. But it didn't win. It had to win People's Choice. Which is basically, we didn't want that game to win, so we'll put the game that the fans actually wanted to win in that one. You handed the award to someone who I am most positively convinced paid you off and had a load of bots vote for it. It's the only possible way. Because if real fans voted, the game wouldn't have come anywhere near winning. But it did. And it can't be changed now. Imagine, if you will, if you compile different generations of games together. Imagine you plucked E.T. for the NES, and you got God of War, the most recent God of War, and you put them into the category of Game of the Year. And you picked E.T. to win that. One of the most hated NES games of all time, one of the most hated games of all time, beat one of the best games of all time. I love God of War. I love the story. I love the characters. I love the visuals. I love the gameplay. I love everything about it. I loathe E.T. It should never have been made. And if it was going to be made, it should have been made way better. So if E.T. won the Game of the Year award over God of War, I would be understandably pissed, as would many people. And I'm sure you would notice that and understand that that's the case. Because one was shit, people said it's shit, people still say it's shit. The other was loved. People said that they loved it, people still say that they love it. And you have done that. You've taken the ET, the God of War of this year, and you handed it to the ET. Aside from looking good, The Last of Us Part 2 is shit. And you take the character that is most hated by everyone in this game, and you focus on her for the majority of the game, and expect us to care about her. You turn the villain into the hero. There are times where a villain stops being a villain and becomes a hero. But that's because people love that villain, and there's a bigger villain out there than them. And they side with the hero to take said bigger villain down, thus making them a hero, and people love that that villain became a hero because they love that villain and they want to see that villain more. So making them the hero puts them alongside the other heroes to take down the other villain, which means you get plenty of interactions, good jokes, because there'd be jokes that the villain done really bad shit and the hero stopped them, and they still don't like each other for it, but they still have to work together. You did not do this. This was not done. This took the villain and tried to force it to be the hero. And it took the hero and forced it to be the villain. There was no plot twist on why. There was no Ellie was a bad guy the whole time. But there couldn't have been that. There couldn't have been that anyway. Because she was a good guy the whole time. Right from her first scene in the first game, right up to the end of the second game, she is the good guy. Whereas you took someone who was pretty much the villain from whatever the fuck she was doing during the first game, aka not existing, which was a beautiful time, and she became a hero. No, really. Abby is supposed to be the good guy here, because Ellie is treated like a murderous monster. Which I'm totally fine with. If she wants to be a murderous monster, make her a murderous monster. Getting her revenge on Abby. Which she doesn't do. Abby lives so that they can give us The Last of Us Part 3. But my guess is we probably won't get that. We will get a DLC. Because The Last of Us Part 2 was hated so much, they'll be too afraid to make The Last of Us Part 3. And if they do make The Last of Us Part 3, people probably aren't even going to buy it. And you handed its predecessor Game of the Year. How far is Neil's dick up your ass? How far exactly? Just the tip? Midway? Or balls deep? My guess is balls deep. And if it's not his dick, it's definitely his face. With his mouth all puckered up or his tongue hanging out, going up and down. Right up your crack. And I wonder, how much he paid you. I'm going to guess it was quite a lot. And the bots that obviously would have decided this as well. I wonder how many of those are actually his own personal creation. In the same way of making multiple accounts for a streaming service to get the free trial. I wonder how much of that is him, the bots. What I'm trying to say is, this game did not deserve the award it got. If you wanted to give it an award, give it best visuals. And even then, Ghost of Tsushima rivals it. But that's the only category where it's okay. It literally fails in every other possible category. Fuck Abby. And not in the way she was in that game. We did not need that. Like, we definitely did not need that scene. And fuck everyone who thinks The Last of Us is good in any way. Apart from the visuals. Again, that's the only good thing I can say about it, is the visuals. It looks good. But it's not good. And a message to the people who are likely going to defend this game against me. You can bash me in the comments all you want. I'm not even going to bother responding. I'll probably read them. I'll probably say my opinion on your comment out loud to myself. But I won't reply to you. Because I literally have no reason to. Because everyone knows this game is shit. And if you don't think it's shit, that's your opinion. I'm not even going to bother arguing it with you. But I am going to argue how much people seem to love it. Which I can't understand. And these people won't even listen to the opinions of the people who hate it. They might say it. They might say, you're entitled to your own opinion. But if that was the case, don't argue with them. Just say, well, I disagree with you. I actually enjoyed the game, but I respect your opinion as you're entitled to. Now, there are people who say that, but they shove an argument in the middle of that. With the whole, it's storytelling, or Abby is actually a good character. All the characters are good characters. It's told really well. It's not. The gameplay is the exact same as the first game, and there was no attempt to update it. There's no new infected, which I guess that's okay. Like, I guess I never should have expected that. But, like, there's definitely more possible versions of infected that can be explored. Maybe a more halfway point between runners and clickers. Maybe a more halfway point between clickers and bloaters. You know, maybe the midway point between a clicker and a bloater is basically just a small bloater, but it still clicks. And it's as fast as a clicker. But we didn't get that, we just got the usuals. And to have Joel go out like such a bitch. Like, of all the characters to go out that way, you pick Joel. And somehow, this deserved an award. It just doesn't make sense. People shit all over the game, and you reward it. It's almost like we're getting to the unfortunate stage of gaming and even filmmaking where the fans' opinions just do not matter anymore. There are amazing examples of when the fans are 100% right. Look at Avengers Endgame. The fans loved the MCU so much leading up to that they gave us one of the biggest fan service scenes of all time. And fans loved that scene. So much, and the rest of the movie so much, it's now the highest grossing movie of all time. Another example, still in the superhero genre, is Deadpool. In X-Men Origins Wolverine, Deadpool was a piece of shit. He was nothing like Deadpool apart from the healing factor. Deadpool does not have blades coming out of his hands like Wolverine. He holds onto his swords. He doesn't have... You took away his mouth. He's the merc with a mouth and you took away his mouth. And I even saw a behind the scenes video where someone explained that he has these black diamonds around his eyes. Do you mean the black eyepieces on his mask? He wasn't wearing a mask in the movie. It was just black that suddenly got... I don't know, I guess it got burned into his face because he uses laser eyes. But if that's the case, it should have happened to Cyclops as well. And people hated that so much that Ryan Reynolds and everyone else who worked on the actual Deadpool movie fought to get that movie made. But the studio was so worried that it would flop that they wouldn't go for it. And then, when someone who may or may not sound like Lion Kennels leaked the footage online, the test footage, it blew up. Everyone loved it. The movie got made. And even though the filmmakers, the studio were still worried that it had flopped, they gave it the budget of a fucking sandwich. It worked. The filmmakers made it work. They took the small budget and they turned it into money. The movie fucking blew up the box office, which they didn't expect it to, but the fans expected it to because they loved the character and they wanted to see the character. And it did that. It got a sequel which had a bigger budget and more in it, which is how it works. The Last of Us 2 did not listen to any of that. It took the characters people loved and shit on them. It gave the fans the middle finger. And for creators come out and say that they didn't like the dynamic between Joel and Ellie. The dynamic they created just doesn't make sense. So for this piece of shit to be rewarded for that, it just doesn't make sense. And there's no turning back now. You're going to have to live with all the bitching. Because it's the bitching you caused. I honestly don't know what else to say about it. Game was shit. The fact that it got Game of the Year award is shit. Fuck you.